Okay, today we are playing a game on Watchpoint Gibraltar. The average SR of this game was 2,245, and we will be playing Moira the entire way through, which will be for quite a while today, because this is a very long replay. Our current team composition is Orisa, Zarya, Reaper, Sombra, Moira, and Zenyatta. So there are several things to be sad about today. Baseline, first off, we're missing Mercy, which is very sad, because Mercy is still the best hero in the game. Secondly, we have Orisa Zarya as our combo of tanks, so we don't really have a front line. Like, it's a very tragic combination of tanks to have, because, yeah, there's not very high presence. There's no Reinhardt, Diva, Winston in there, basically, is what I'm saying. And then, our DPS are Reaper and Sombra, so, just generally not super high DPS team anyway, but also, if they have a Pharah, ooh, that'll be tragic, won't it? They don't have a Pharah, but that could be quite tragic. Our team also doesn't do a lot of damage in general, so because we have Reaper and Sombra as our two DPS, so it's quite sad. It's quite sad. In the accompanying email, it says, in particular, I felt very out of position and like a headless chicken throughout this game. I feel very compelled to run around and do all of the things. Any advice on finding a position and just staying in it would be helpful. It depends on what hero you're playing as to where your position is. Moira is generally trying to stay right behind her front line, not being the front line. There's a difference between those two things. And, I know you play a lot of Zenyatta. Zenyatta sits, like, in the back line. Like, finding the position basically just depends on your hero. Moira is, like, right with the front line. Not the front line, but with the front line. Staying in it is, well, it's just about having personal discipline, isn't it? Like, you have to just sort of say to yourself, no, I don't care if they're getting fucked back there, I can't do anything about that, so I'm just gonna stay over here and do my job. Like, it's just about self-discipline. If you know what your role is, you just say to yourself, alright, I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna find the spot I'm supposed to stand in, I'm gonna figure out what my hero does, and then I'm just gonna focus on doing that before I do anything else. Because there is a tendency for people to be like, oh, I've gotta cover all these aspects, like, I've gotta cover for all of my teammates because they can't be trusted to do anything. Which is true, they can't be trusted to do anything. But also, you have to do your job first. So, it's kind of about self-discipline. And yeah, like, as for finding the position, it just depends on the hero. We don't have a great front line in this game, so it is gonna be sad. Like, seeing as Moira wants to stand with the front line, if your front line is just doesn't have a lot of staying power, you're gonna end up, retreating backwards a lot, because your front line is kind of getting rolled over. So, let's start the game. Hopefully that answered your question. I don't really feel like it did, but hopefully it did. So, we were up there, chucked our orb in, ran away, we got a little bit of ult charge off of it, that's great. So as we can see, they've got a Doomfist, which is fantastic news for us, because Doomfist is still a really bad hero. However, our two DPS are already dead. I mean, Reaper's a DPS, but you know. And now Zenyatta's also dead. So now we're missing half of our team. We don't quite kill this McCree, which is very sad, because he did almost die. But yeah, we should be retreating backwards now. Our team don't really want to retreat backwards with us right now, or the remainder of our team anyway. But we don't want to be up here. We are going to jump right down on top of the payload. Not generally a recommended maneuver at the best of times, because it can quite easily result in just the enemy team turning around and killing you. But we do at least have Fade. Orisa has no such benefits, so... As we can see, our team is indeed currently getting rolled over, and we have very limited options to really stop this from happening, because a lot of people are just kind of dying very suddenly. Like, Doomfist has punched and killed several people. Reaper is now dead again. We should not be this far up. Like, all of our teammates are currently dead, so we should be leaving. We are leaving now. Also, this is the point where you use the orb to heal yourself, because we're walking around with 73 hit points. We're walking around with 7 hit points. Like, just use the orb to heal yourself at this point. Yeah, you know, no one really wants to do that, but, like, we can't be walking around with 7 hit points. We decide to do it eventually, but, like, now there's, like, a fight happening. Now we kind of want to have our orb up by this point. We should have just done it sooner, basically. So we have Coalescence. Doomfist is currently using Meteor Strike. So we definitely don't want to use Coalescence before he lands, because otherwise we know who he's going to land on. And we are now going to use it. However, this is not the best time to use Coalescence, because a lot of our team are already dead still. It's a continual problem that we're having right now. So Sombra has changed to Soldier, which is fantastic news. Coalescence is one of those ultimates that, if you're already losing the fight, it tends to not be fantastic, because it's not the kind of immediate spike that's going to turn a fight back around in your favor, you know? It's not like Dragon Blade, where you can be down like a couple of people, but then you can kill 3 people on the enemy team and even it out. Coalescence is not that way, because it's a support ultimate, so you kind of want as many people on your team to be alive as possible. Also, like, our team is really bad. Like, also, even if, like, most of our team were alive at that point, still gonna be really hard to use anyway, because our team comp was, and still is, quite bad. But now at least we have a Soldier instead of a Sombra, so we actually, like, maybe have a DPS on our team now. However, Zenyatta is dead, you know, right as the next fight's about to start, so that's great, obviously. Here comes Doomfist again. Doomfist is actually, like, killing a lot of people, which is very depressing, because he is still a bad hero. Here he comes, he's right next to us right now, and we're just trying to heal these people up, but like, oh god, over here we can see sadness is happening to the rest of our team. We've got Coalescence again. This is like the last fight we're gonna get, so we might as well just use it and hope for the best. And it actually doesn't go that terribly. Amazingly enough. However, I'm going to spoil the surprise for you. Seeing as this is a 28-minute game, you must know we play several rounds on this map. Yeah, they get this checkpoint not too long from now. So, there's not really been much we can do this round, because our team comp was really bad, and our teammates are bad on top of that, so it's a stacking effect, basically. And, there's been a lot of staggering and just kind of getting rolled over the entire time. Now we are actually in a position where we get to sort of play the game for a little bit, which sure is nice. Isn't that nice, actually getting to play the video game? So we get really greedy for this McCree right here, because we know he's almost dead, so we go for him. I would just fade through the doorway after him, because it's ticking on him. He's gonna mostly die. Like, if I'm gonna commit this hard to him, I'm just gonna fade through the doorway, because he just used his flashbang, so there's no fear of that doing anything to us. But, also, we're just being really thirsty, because don't forget, the only other healer on our team is Zenyatta, so we're our team's main healer right now. We shouldn't really be running off to chase kills down, because we do have to actually be around and heal our teammates. So, the enemy team, here's Tracer, she's behind us right now. We are missing both of our DPS, and now we're missing Orisa. Now we're missing ourselves. So, yeah, they get this checkpoint. And half of our team have their ultimates, which is the really depressing part. Some really good ultimates as well. We had Graviton and Transcendence. If only our teammates could be alive for 3 seconds. Man, like, basically, the issue there was our team comp was really bad, and because of that, they rolled over us for the first, like, 2 checkpoints, and it just sort of set the tempo for the rest of the round, really. Like, we had no frontline. We had no consistent DPS. The only DPS we really had on our team were Reaper and Orisa, because Zarya actually has to get to high charge, which is difficult when you have no actual frontline, and also when your team are bad and keep dying. So, it just, like, so then it's like, alright, so our frontline is basically just Orisa, because Zarya can't actually generate any charge, and because of that, Zarya has, like, negative presence. And she's also not building her ultimate. However, we also know Orisa is not the front line, so she gets rolled over. But then, also, to make matters worse, Reaper and Sombra have no self-preservation instincts and just continually die. Then the whole team comes back in, like, waves, where, like, a few people come back, and then they die, and then we stagger, and then they just get to go through the first 2 checkpoints with no contest. Then we get to the 3rd checkpoint. By that point, we've already used a couple of ultimas, trying weakly to fend off these pushes that were never really gonna get fended off, because our team comp was bad, and we were in a bad position. And then it just kept getting worse. Then we managed to fend them off, but the old issue returned, where we have no front line, and our DPS still had no self-preservation instincts. So basically there was like nothing we could do in that entire round because too many things were breaking down in the machine at once. So, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but it's okay. Now we just have to do what they did, but faster. We don't do it faster. We do it significantly slower. We do it though. do. So we've managed to help pick off Mercy right at the start of the round, which is great because they're now missing their main healer. We're missing Reaper, not the end of the world, because now they're missing Moira. They're now missing both of their healers. They lose the fight automatically based off of that. It's just how it is. Overwatch is that simple a lot of the time. And then they continue to get picked off as well. So as we can see, they're having a similar issue to us, except their team comp is actually good, and it's still happening to them because they lost their 2 healers right at the start of the fight, and then other people were out of position as well. So it just, it's a stacking effect, basically. So now we get to push up here. Because of the spawns, they are always going to get back to have a fight outside of the hangar. That's just how it is on this map. However, Tracer's got Pulse Bomb already. She killed 2 of them. One of them was Moira. Now Roadhog's dead again. They're missing half of their team right now, so they're pretty fucked. Mercy's now also dead. We didn't really have to do anything because Tracer basically made us win that fight with Pulse Bomb. And then other people died as well, which was helpful. Mercy can't have Valkyrie yet because she died right at the start of the first fight. So she's still working on that. She's probably got like 30-40% charge at this point. So she can't help turn that situation around. That Moira over there is fucked. We aren't making much of an effort to heal this lady in the staircase right now, which we should be trying to do, because, yeah, D.Va losing her mech is not the end of the world, but, we don't want her to lose her mech. We can just fade over there and get close enough to start healing her mech, because we don't want her to lose it. Yeah, we wouldn't be pushing the payload, but, the rest of our team are coming out right now. And also, we can just, come back after those people are dead. We should have been healing, D.Va, is the moral of the story, basically. Because we are a healer, so shockingly enough, our job is to heal people. So we have Coalescence. Moira had the bad spawn where she had to try and go through the hangar after spawning down there, which is sad for her. We're just going to use Coalescence because we might as well. Zenyatta's using Transcendence because we're in the Graviton, so now they're down Graviton and Dragon Strike, which is great news for us because now there's no fear of that combo happening for quite a while. And we get to basically do exactly what they did, which is roll over the first 2 checkpoints because the enemy team have no self-preservation instincts. Well, the second checkpoint, was more just Tracer fucked them, basically, more than anything else. But, doesn't help. So then Moira's using Coalescence. That's a really terrible time for her to use Coalescence because they're not in any position to really be fighting right now. Half of their team is, we're basically driving a wedge between a few members of their team, so then she uses Coalescence, but she can't really do anything with it. No one else is in a position to capitalize. Their Graviton and Dragon Strike were already down. They were in a bad spot to fight, so it's just generally very sad for them. So we wiped them, but we wiped them right at the start of the checkpoint, so they are going to get to fight us again out here, and now they have several stalling heroes, like this here Mei. As we can see. Currently stalling us. At this point, we should probably use a healing orb to heal ourselves, because we're really low HP right now. But it's okay, they're still not doing anything, and Zenyatta started healing us as well. God. Man, some games you just gotta put in no work, you know what I mean? So, now we're gonna use Coalescence. Their Mercy's getting run down over there. She doesn't actually die. I would be running after that Mercy, because she's low HP. We're using Coalescence. We've only got to shift a little bit to the side, like so, and we can slip the Coalescence back in through there and finish her off. There's not very much on their team for us to be afraid of right now, because the only people in front of us are Orisa, Reinhardt, and Mercy. Mercy is the one we're trying to run down, so there would be little they could do to stop us. But it's okay, she dies anyway. So now we're missing 2 people. We are trying to do damage rather than... We're worrying about doing damage more than healing, because this Winston's running back to us like, oh god, I'm dying. We are playing a healer, so even though Moira is a healer that does damage, healing is still your #1 priority. So this is the time you use the healing orb on yourself again, because... Or you can use the damage orb on if you're feeling really spicy, but like... I'd be concerned of Tracer killing me, because Tracer can kill you really quickly. And this is like the perfect place to use the healing orb to duel someone, because it's going to bounce around this small room and heal you. You can also reason out that because it's a small room, it's going to do the damage orb will do the full damage to the Tracer. But we're already half HP, so I'd err on the side of caution and use the healing orb personally. It works out, anyway. It's just if the Tracer has decent aim, she'll kill you really quickly. And also, Tracer can get right in Moira's face, because Tracer wants to be really close to you. Moira doesn't really gain anything from you being closer to her, you know, so... Anyway, though, so we've ended up losing our momentum. The sad thing about losing your momentum on a payload map is that, like, if in, like, this situation where you push it right to the end of the track, that you've already passed the hard part, right? Because the hard part to get around is this corner and then the straight line. If you lose your momentum right at the end of that checkpoint, you now have to do the hard part again, but now you don't have the payload there to support you. And this is why if you lose momentum on a payload map, it can be really hard to regain your momentum. There are a few checkpoints like that, like the hangar. If you get it all the way to the door, but you don't quite get it to the end of the hangar, you now have to go through, like, the choke point next to the shuttle, but now you don't have the payload with you to make it easier, so it gets harder. Basically every checkpoint on Dorado, if you get through the arch on the first checkpoint, you get it to the end, but then you lose momentum. Now you gotta do the arch again without the payload. Get it to the end of the street. Now you gotta do the whole street again without the payload. And it just keeps going on like that. So now we're in the unenviable position of having to push up to the end of the track without our payload here to help us do it. It's very tragic when that happens on a payload map. This is usually what ends up stalling. Well, obviously, this is usually what ends up leading to people not getting anywhere in a payload map. They'll get far once, but then they can't recapture that, you know. So we got Span on. Didn't fade in time. Reaction time, important skill with fade, because shit like that happens, basically. Sometimes you gotta dodge Earth Shatter as well, so things like that. Here comes Reinhardt. Our Fade is currently on cooldown, and we did not dodge it. Why did we use Fade? Why was Fade on cooldown? We just used it to get back faster? Basically. We could have walked up that way ourselves, because, like, the enemy team isn't actually anything long-range scary, because they have Reaper Mei right now. So we didn't really need to use Fade to get in there, and then that ends up happening. You could also argue you don't really need to... No excuse there. Yeah. You can also argue you don't need to use Fade to dodge a Reinhardt charge, but if you use Fade and then you get caught with Fade on cooldown, it can be very sad, because Moira hasn't got much else at that point. So our team are currently staggering themselves, because half of our team are currently dead. We shouldn't be up here right now, because half our team is currently dead, so all we're doing is risking staggering ourselves. Rest of our team's reinforcing. Tracer's just killed Reinhardt, so that's cool. Diva isn't back yet, but we can start trying to make some progress because their Reinhardt's dead, but now Reinhardt's not dead anymore. We've got Coalescence, that's cool, we're just going to use Coalescence, then we get Earth Shattered. You do have to be careful when there's a Reinhardt in view, because we know that Reinhardt must have Earth Shatter, because he's been on their team for a while at this point, and not used Earth Shatter. And, you know, this is still fine to do, you just gotta, like, immediately start backing up, because Coalescence does have a 30-meter range, which is longer than Earth Shatter, so if you think you're at risk of getting Earth Shattered, you can just back right the fuck up before or after you start using Coalescence, and he won't hit you, and you can still be doing your business. So yeah, our team's currently fucked, because we got hit by a bunch of stuff, pretty much. And then Reaper pops out next to us and kills us, and it feels really bad, man, unsurprisingly. Dying doesn't feel good, this just in. So, D.Va is now Roadhog. That's fine. D.Va's not really going to get that much work done against their team. Winston should honestly change off of Winston as well, but I don't know that he does. Okay, he changed to D.Va. That's better than Winston, because they had, like, Reaper Mei. Like, D.Va's not even that much better, because D.Va gets frozen by Mei, then Reaper comes in while she's getting shot at by the Orisa. D.Va's not a... Yeah, she should just be playing Reinhardt, actually, at this point. Would that be particularly fun for them either? No, not really, but it would be better than D.Va. Or Winston, because, you know, Winston just jumps in and gets fucked, but, D.Va will also get fucked, probably. So, we've only got a minute left. You know, we've got, like, 2 pushes left. Their Reaper just killed himself, so that's cool. Zenyatta's finally healing us up, and now Reaper has managed to kill half of their team. Well, actually, he's managed to kill more than half of their team, hasn't he? Because he's killed 4 people. Look at that. Great job, Reaper. Now the payload has actually kind of come back to us, so we can push up this part with the payload again. And look at that. Now we can just use Coalescence and just shove it down the doorway, really. Like, I would have just kept shoving it down the doorway to try and kill the people as they come out, because that's usually the door they come out of. But at this point, they just kind of have to rush out and start trying to touch the payload. We are backing out of Transcendence while that's happening. This can get you killed. Because if Reaper's like right at the edge of the Transcendence and then you back out of the Transcendence, you end up dying. So, yeah, you usually want to back, like, natural reaction is I don't want to be next to Reaper, so I'm going to start backing up. That can actually kill you in that position if things line up a little bit differently. Sometimes, because Transcendence is there, the better option is actually just to hang close to him. So, the enemy team at this point still just kind of have to rush out and try to touch the point, and they're just kind of getting bullied. I would use the healing orb again, because, like, I don't want to die more than anything else, and we were getting really low. Then Blizzard gets dropped on us. Was Fade off cooldown at that point, or was it still on cooldown? Fade was still on cooldown. Very sad. We don't really need to be touching the payload, because by the time the Blizzard is there, it's already too late, because Fade is on cooldown. So the only logical thing to do at that point is back it up and say, well, how could I have not been in that position to begin with? We don't really need to be on the payload, right? Because we are reasonably long range. Like, our right click has a 20-meter range, so we could just back up and let our front line deal with it. Again, we don't want to be the front line, we just want to be with our front line. And we could back up a little bit to have that happen, and then we could use the healing orb to heal ourselves, and that would be cool, because we might have been hanging close to the payload to get healed up, but if the enemy team suddenly dumps an ult on the payload, you will be sad about it, as we were right there. So we are now halfway through this replay, well, a little bit over at this point, but, you know, we're getting there, It's a long one today. So we can see that Symmetra is out there, up to no good. As, you know, she usually is up to no... You see a Symmetra or a Junkrat prowling around outside your point, they're up to no good. Moira okay. Moira is okay against Symmetra because of the light lock-on, so you can kind of just, like, swing around and break a bunch of Symmetra turrets. Well, got shot by Hanzo, and we ended up dying. Again, we don't really need to be on the payload, especially seeing as we don't have a tank to stand in front of us because we don't have a Reinhardt. We can be standing a little bit back behind the payload. Yeah, Moira is still an aggressive hero, but, like, you don't want to be the front line. You want to be just behind your front line, so don't really need to be that far up. And again, by the time we get hit by the Hanzo, it's kind of already too late, so you can only go back and go, well, how could I have not been in that position? And go, well, didn't really need to be that far up as Moira. So Hanzo's already got his ultimate, that's cool. Got shot in the face by Hanzo, that's sad. Like, I would have gone for it as well, because I would, basically just hope he lacked the skill to one-shot me. Well, he only has to hit you at that point, so I would have gone for it as well. Like, I don't respect Hanzo players enough to, like, back out of that one, personally. Mostly because they're really bad, and, like, Hanzo players never really get that good. Like, because he's not really a very good hero, you know? Like, what does he really do? He doesn't even, like, pressure people the same way that, like, Widow does, right? It's like, the best thing Hanzo's got going for him is he's got one of the better ults to combo with Graviton, and Scatter Arrow, and Sonic Arrow. And that's kinda it. Like, Hanzo doesn't really do very much, so he's kinda... Unless you are an absolute god, Hanzo doesn't tend to work out very much. I kinda want them to, like... rework Hanzo a little bit. Like, maybe make him do, like, a little bit less damage, but give him, like, way more utility. Because... I think it would be cool if he was like, Green Arrow, basically, where he had a fuck ton of arrows that do different things, right? Where he could have, like, an explosive arrow, so it doesn't do very much damage if it hits you directly, but then it explodes for AoE damage. Maybe one that, like, maybe one that does, like, half damage, but it goes through barriers or something like that. You know, the good old freeze arrow. Like, I think it would be cool if Hanzo did, like, less damage, but he had a fuck ton more utility. And then maybe he could actually be a good hero. Who maybe. You know, it's not unimaginable. Also like Green Arrow, so that might have something to do with it. So, enemy team, currently staggered. Orisa used her ultimate really badly, so that's great for us. So we're now in that phase of the overtime where we are largely fucked and we're just going to hope for the best. Winston is currently trying to push through the doorway at critical health, so we should really be trying to heal him instead of, like, throwing the orb up there. He shouldn't be continuing to walk into the Junkrat spam while in critical health, but it's what he chose to do, so we have to try and, like, make sure he doesn't die, really. He probably would have done anyway, but we do have an obligation to try and make him not die, because we are playing a healer. That's the thing with playing a healer, is it's kind of just a lot about, you know... These people got no self-preservation instincts, so we have to have self-preservation instincts for them. So we've almost got Coalescence, which is cool. Just, like, chuck those orbs out there, because we only need, like, a little bit more. And I would just use it as soon as I build it up, which we pretty much do, but, like, I would just be, like, slamming that button. Like, give me the damage. It ends up not being particularly fantastic, because we're in a bit of an awkward position. But also, like, you're not gonna get a better time to use it. Now they've just used a lot of ultimates, most of which are pretty good. Like, Death Blossom isn't great, but the Tire and Tac Visor are really good. And then Death Blossom's just in there for good measure. You're not meant to win the fight. At that point, like, they just chucked a lot of ultimates on top of our head, and we're not meant to win the fight at that point. So we're here, we've done it, we're in the final round. Now we just have to hold them on the first checkpoint and a half for 4 minutes and 52 seconds. No big deal. You know, it's not... you know, we see teams not get the first checkpoint on Gibraltar all the time. No sweat. Easy money. So we chucked our orb in there again. We got 9% off of it, so that's good times for us. Now we actually have a team. I'm gonna complain. I'm gonna complain again. I fucking hate where people do this thing. Where I hate when people go, if it doesn't work, I'll change. Because that's them making the admittance that it will probably not work. And they know that. So they're ready to change if it doesn't work. But if it doesn't work and then you change, like, you just actually make things worse, right? Because you go, alright, I'm gonna pick Symmetra. Just because this is, like, I think one of the more common heroes where they're like, if it doesn't work, I'll change. They're like, I pick Symmetra. And it doesn't work. Because it has a fairly low chance to work overall. And it doesn't work, and then they're like, alright, I'm gonna change. The thing is, if you knew it wasn't likely to work, and then you change off of it anyway, you make things worse because you lost the first fight, which is usually what dictates the pace for the rest of the game. Like, the first fight is easily the most important fight in the entire game. Because it dictates the flow of the rest of the game. And then, so, the enemy team, they win that fight, they get a bunch of ult charge, you then change off the hero that didn't work, so you drop all ult charge, and now you're trying to work on your ult charge for another hero, which is at 0 while they're pushing into you, and they have more ults than you, and you're at 0, so you have even longer to go before you build up another ultimate. I fucking hate when people do that shit. Like, if you know it isn't very likely to work, don't do it. I fucking hate when people, like, pick these bullshit, like, meme teams like we had at the start of this game. And then, oh shit, it didn't work, so now let's pick a real team when, like, it's direly too late, basically. Right? Like, oh, now we have a real team right during the last, like, 30 seconds of the game. Fantastic. Imagine if we had a real team the entire way through. We might have won the game. Oh, crazy. Hate that shit. Because it just... there's nothing I hate hearing more than, if it doesn't work, I'll change. Because you know it's probably not gonna work, and you're just gonna make everything worse. I hate people. So, we're fighting this here Genji, and then Genji flies off that way. Because he dropped really low and he doesn't want to die. You know, as one typically does. We are still kind of worrying a little bit more about doing damage than we are about healing people. We do have a Mercy here, so it helps. I wouldn't have used the damage orb there. I would have chucked the healing orb around the corner, because our team is still kind of fighting around there. And also, like, it worked out because Tracer blinked up to us, but, like, we didn't know Tracer was coming. Like, when I saw that happen, I was like, oh, we got Tracer. Nice. You know, who saw that one coming? We should, like... Fortunately, I was gonna say we should use the healing orb to heal ourselves up, but Soldier used Biotic Field, so it's actually okay, because we can just use that instead. We've almost got Coalescence built up, so that's cool, because Coalescence is a pretty cool ultimate. It's not, like, the greatest in the world, but it charges real fast, so you have a lot of them. Mei has managed to kill Tracer, which is very surprising, honestly, and we get to try and fight the Genji off, which is not hard for Moira. They have their Doomfist back again, which is fantastic news for us, because Doomfist is still not a very good hero. Granted, he did do a lot of work during the first round, so who knows, you know, we'll see. So we should be trying to heal Mercy right now, because we can see Mercy is nearly fucking dead. She had 1 hit point during this exchange. And now we're going in to try and fight the Tracer. Then we fade away from the Mercy, who is at, like, 1 hit point. So she's like, oh god, please come back. And then Tracer goes up on her. Now we're trying to heal the Mercy. We should have been healing the Mercy sooner. Right, because she tethered to us at, like, 1 hit point. We hear Doomfist charging up, comes in, manages to kill Mercy instead of us, so that's sad, obviously, but, yeah, you fade out of the way of the fist, unsurprisingly. This is not a very good time to use Coalescence, because most of our team are not currently here, so all we end up really doing with this Coalescence is running away with it. Because Genji also pulled out his blade right afterwards. But the only person with us was Mei. Like, we should wait until the team regroups a little bit more first, because you don't really want to use the Coalescence, like, 2v4, you know? So, team has managed to regroup. You know, it's not going terribly. Could be going worse. Mercy managed to not die because she had the bubble on her more than anything else, and now she gets to use Valkyrie. Zarya has killed herself, which is very hard to do as Zarya, honestly, but she managed to do it. And we actually managed to stall them out outside the gate. Isn't this incredible? Who would have guessed from the way this game was going earlier that we'd actually be in a position where, like, hey, we might hold them outside the first checkpoint. Who knows? Yet, it's amazing what can happen, right? Like, who would have guessed? Who would have guessed, especially with the team comp we had right at the start? So, now we're just sort of, cleaning up at this point. Diva ended up being pretty staggered because she died, like, right as her team was arriving, and then Winston decided that he wanted to die with her as a display of solidarity, so that's his choice. If he wants to do that, he's allowed to, but I wouldn't have recommended it. So Zarya's got Graviton. We've almost got Coalescence, so that's great. That should be enough to fend off, like, the next push in and of itself. So that's great for us. If you see a diva right in front of you, like, probably hold off on using the orb, because, like, you want to throw the orb out on cooldown, basically, so you can be working on your charge, but, like, if diva's looking right at you, she's just gonna eat the orb, so it ends up doing nothing anyway. So, if you're in a position where you think diva is gonna eat your orb, just, like, don't bother using the orb, because, like, yeah, you end up holding on to the cooldown, but, like, otherwise you just throw the cooldown out and, like, it does nothing, and you knew it was gonna do nothing, so you're better off sitting on it at that point. So we're being flanked by Moira right now, which is flatly pointless. Like, he's, like, entirely pointless of a thing for her to be doing, but she chose to do it, so whatever. I would have used the healing orb there, mostly because I can see Mercy is, like, getting fucked, so I would send We can see she's getting out, so I'd send the healing orb, like, off in this direction, because I would not want Mercy to die, because Mercy is, like, the most important hero on your team, always, at all points in time. But, so, Graviton ended up doing work here. Their Mercy is now using Valkyrie. However, they've lost, like, a lot of tempo during this fight, so even though she uses Valkyrie, it's gonna end up doing nothing, because most of their team was dead and she could not res everybody. So, they've got 1, maybe 2 pushes left in them right now. Mercy has Valkyrie, and D.Va has Self-Destruct. Self-Destruct is not very good, but Valkyrie is like a 9 out of 10 ultimate, so that should be enough for the next push. And then hopefully by the push after that, like, we've got our ultimate, and like, hopefully someone else is getting close, so that should be enough, hopefully, if they even get 2 more pushes. Because, yeah, it depends how quickly the enemy team is going to recollect. So we're trying really hard to get to the Reaper at this point. Like, by this point, you don't need to keep going for Reaper, because he's going to get to the health kit. However, we can just kind of help him fight over here anyway, so doesn't really matter. So, here, we've lost our Mercy, which is terrible news, because she is the one that had the ultimate we were really hoping to use this fight. And, yeah, it's not really going very well. At this point, we're just backing up, get hung up on the geometry, use the healing orb to heal yourself, yep. Thought you were going to throw the damage orb for a second there, I was like, please don't do that to me. So Mercy's going to use Valkyrie here. And she, wish I knew how much charge Zarya had right now, to know if I could judge Mercy for the people that she chose to res. So, we're walking into people right now, which we shouldn't be doing, because Moira gains nothing from being closer to the enemy, except being easier to kill herself. And, like, we don't need to go stand over on the payload yet, because it's still got a little ways to go before it actually gets to the end of the checkpoint. It also doesn't matter if they get the checkpoint, because they don't get the time extension anyway. So there's just really no reason for us to come and stand over on the payload, because it's gonna just increase our risk of dying, which we really don't want to have happen, because we're so close to having Coalescence. And, like, don't forget, in overtime on a payload map, it doesn't matter if they get it to the checkpoint, because they don't get the time extension for getting it to the checkpoint. So, them getting it to the checkpoint is actually meaningless. So you can be pretty chill about it. So, we have Coalescence, and I would have just used it as soon as I would have used it to get back faster, frankly, because you move faster while using it. But, we get back in time to use Coalescence. They're pretty fucked. Look at this. Isn't it incredible? Isn't it incredible that we ended up winning this game? Did you expect us to win this game from the way it started? Because I can tell you that I didn't expect to win this game. But we ended up winning. Incredible. Gino for you, whatever the fuck his name was, like, I went off. I don't even know who he was playing. So.
They're also oblivious.
Oh, thanks, mate. Who was he? Who was? Oh, he was the other, whoever the fuck. I still don't know who he was. Whatever. Anyway, so, there was probably something that stood out over this game, but, like, honestly, after watching this, like, after going through this 27-minute video, it kind of all starts to mush together after a little bit. I remember being too far up a lot, and I remember focusing a lot on doing damage rather than healing people, so that's what I'm gonna go with. Yeah. So, thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If I didn't answer your email adequately, which I probably didn't, let me know and I'll try to elaborate further, and I hope you found the video helpful.